Hi guys, it's Taylor, and today I would like to talk to you guys about the new thing that we've learned in class this week. We found out how to define the relationship between the standard form of a quadratic, which is ax squared plus bx plus c, to the vertex form, which is y equals a times the quantity of x minus h plus k, and then after solving for x, we're able to relate the preceding equations with the quadratic formula 0 equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So the first step to all of this is starting with the standard form and completing the square. So we're going to write out ax squared plus bx plus some quantity equals negative c. I just subtracted c from both sides so that I could get a nice way of completing the square. And remember that whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we're going to do negative c plus that same sum number that's on the left side of the equal sign. So the next step that I like to take is taking out the a from the left side of the equal sign, which would give us a times the quantity of x squared plus b over ax plus that sum number quantity equals negative c plus some number. What was formerly bx turned into b over a times x because if we multiplied a back into the quantity, bx over a times a would just give us bx all over again. What's going to be in that unknown space is going to be equal to b over a divided by 2 squared. And that's true for any situation when you're completing the square. Now remember that whatever you do on one side, you have to do to the other. So you're going to multiply out a times b over 2a squared and put it on the right side of the equal sign so that whatever happens on one side always happens to the other. So the next step that I like to take is just putting everything that's on the right side of the equal sign right now onto the left side. So that means you're going to add c to the left side and subtract a times the quantity of b over 2a squared. So next I'm going to distribute. So that where we once had b over 2a squared, we are going to have b squared over 4a. So we've already kind of completed the square. So at this point, we can call it a times the quantity of x plus b over 2a squared, plus c minus a times the quantity of b squared over 4a squared. And now we're really kind of journeying towards the vertex form as we look at it, and it becomes a times the quantity of x plus b over 2a squared plus c minus ab squared over 4a squared equals 0. If you didn't notice what I did there, I distributed the a into the b squared over 4a squared. What's cool about the negative ab squared over 4a squared is that the a's can cancel and it'll make b squared over 4a. So now I'm looking at this and I'm wondering whether I can combine c minus b squared over 4a any further. And the answer is yes. By multiplying c by 4a over 4a, which is equal to 1, I can get a common denominator. So now we have a times the quantity of x plus b over 2a squared plus 4ac over 4a minus b squared over 4a. When I combine that further, the 4ac over 4a minus b squared over 4a becomes 4ac minus b squared over 4a. And now finally, we have vertex form, and it looks a lot like this. It's equal to a times the quantity of x plus b over 2a squared plus 4ac minus b squared over 4a. So next I subtract both sides by 4ac minus b squared over 4a. And then my next step is to divide both sides by a. Those two a's cancel, And on the right side, you're basically multiplying it by 1 over 2. And by that, I mean 1 over a. So, we have the quantity of x plus b over 2a squared equals negative 4ac minus b squared over 4a squared. And we're going to find the square root of both sides of the equal sign. This gives us x plus b over 2a equals negative 4ac minus b squared over 2a. Our next step is going to be to subtract both sides by b over 2a, which will give us x equals negative b plus or minus, because we've applied the square root sign, 4ac minus b squared over 2a. And we have the quadratic formula. Yay! And that's not all. We can also talk about adding the solutions in a quadratic equation together. So basically, we know that the quadratic is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. But what if we added the plus or minus portions respectively? If this doesn't make sense, let me write it out. So we would have negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a plus negative b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now first, we can look at everything that's under the radical, because one is positive and one is negative, they cancel each other out. So you have negative b minus b, which is going to give you negative 2b, and because the denominators are equal, and they have a common denominator, you can just write it out as negative b over 2a. What's cool about this is that in any situation where you're given the quadratic formula, or you need to add two solutions together, if you can identify a and b, you know without a doubt that the answer will be negative b over a. There's also a way to knowing what to do if two solutions are averaged. So let's say we have negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a plus b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a all over 2, because we're averaging the two, if that makes sense. Well, we already know what the numerator is going to be equal to, because we just did it in the previous problem, and that is negative b over a. So all we need to know is what negative b over a divided by 2 is. Now we know that when you divide something by 2, it's basically the same as multiplying it by 1/2. So we're going to look at negative b over a times 1/2, which is going to give us negative b over 2a. And that is the new thing that we learned this week. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Bye!